So, who built the 2024 bingo card? Because the space where all the computers go down, so all the flights in the US get grounded, was not on my card. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today I want to talk about a Modern Horizons 3 card. I want to talk about Wight of the Reliquary. So this was a card that I tested a little bit initially right after it came out and was pretty underwhelmed with it. But I want to say that with the caveat that I did not like it in a fair capacity. When you are just turning a creature into a generic land card, I don't know that I am particularly excited about this. And I was trying to use this as something to sacrifice veteran explorers or maybe something to tutor up a wasteland. But I think if this card is going to be good, you really need to be focusing on land as a major portion of your deck list, which is what Austin's deck list that we're going to be playing today does. So this is a black-green lands variant. So our ultimate goal is going to be the Thespian stage combo with Dark Depths to produce a 2020 creature in most games. That's plan A. Copy Dark Depths. You get 2 copies of Dark Depths. One of them, the Thespian stage, has no ice counters on it. Keep that. 2020. Bam. You win. But unlike a traditional lands deck list, we have a whopping 20 creatures. So these creatures are going to help us play a different sort of game. Um, I don't I don't need to talk about this at this point. You just know, right? Like until this gets banned, we just shove it into every orifice that it is possible to shove grief into. Okay, cool. Moving on. Now, Wight of the Reliquary has a cool interaction with the Grief in particular. So if you have your Wight in play, you can go ahead and Grief, take a card from your opponent's hand, and with the Evoke trigger on the stack, you can go ahead and sacrifice that Grief to turn it into part of your combo or one of your utility lands. So in addition to Grief just being an objectively strong thing, it does have some actual synergy with this deck list itself. And in the reanimate world, it's pretty decent to just like have copies of your own reanimate to mise things out of your opponent's graveyard. Although that is getting a little worse as Psychic Frog becomes more popular, as Psychic Frog can blank opposing reanimates by removing cards from graveyard to give Psychic Frog flying. We are going to have a decent ability to select for our lands between Crop Rotation, Elvish Reclaimer, and the Wight of the Reliquary, and we get Ramunap to play things back from the graveyard. As far as notable stuff goes, Pernicious Deed is a little spicy. I feel like there's a decent amount of splash damage here for Pernicious Deed between the Mox Diamonds and the small creatures, but sometimes this is just going to obliterate your opponent's entire deck in one card, so I think we take that downside. Otherwise, we have a handful of relatively strong options versus blue decks, which are a decent chunk of the format right now. And Legolas's Quick Reflexes is an interesting removal spell and, more importantly, protection spell. So just as a refresher, this is split second, so it can't be countered. Untap target creature until end of turn. It gains hexproof reach, and whenever this creature becomes tapped, it deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 target creature. Yeah, so with that being said, let's hop into a league here, see how this feels. Folks, should you need some cards, please consider checking out toamagic.com. They support awesome content creators like myself. They have a huge selection of cards in stock, and you always get free shipping. Use promo code ThrabenU, you'll save 5% on your order on top of that. And I've got a running list of things that I'm going to need to order from Bloomborough from them for sure. The old commander decks are going to need updates. Let's see how this card holds up in battle. All right, my opponent is on 6 cards. I'm keeping this hand. We naturally have Thespian Stage Dark Depths in hand. I've got a couple of Elvish Reclaimers that I can play out. They are not going to immediately grow. Mana Pips currently don't work for this card, although I've got a few turns covered safely. Alright. So, there's going to be at least one wasteland in this deck. I think I'm going to go ahead and just get my basic forest for now. Get Elvish Reclaimer and pass. If Elvish Reclaimer grows, then Legolas's Quick Reflexes and become a real removal spell. We're not there yet. The good news is Thought-Knot Seer isn't super potent against what I've got going on. This start could be very bad for me, though. Glaring Fleshraker going to do a decent amount of damage to me directly. Surely that's not all. Probably going to be a Sowing Mycospawn. It is. So I'm going to take 2 more damage from the Fleshraker, and my opponent's going to get a land. Now this land does enter untapped, so this may allow my opponent to play more spells this turn. Where were these sort of nice, like, Glaring Fleshraker, Eye of Ugin hands in the Eldrazi League that I just played? Oh, we're getting haste up in here. Thanks, I hate it. That's 2 more direct damage, plus an Eldrazi Linebreaker hit. My opponent controls 5 Eldrazi. This is just 8 trample damage coming in at me immediately. I don't think anything I do from here keeps up with this rate. I mean, that helps. I can Mox Diamond, discard a Thespian's Stage, play an Elvish Reclaimer, hold up an activation, and then I can have 2, 3, 4 creatures. My land here enters tapped, which is not great. I could preemptively Legolas's Quick Reflexes, the Eldrazi Linebreaker. That probably gives me the best chance of winning. Can't do that while also playing out this, though. This land is going to enter tapped, so I can 100% kill this. I'm just going to be, like, dead to a spell. I think I just live with that. My opponent's got 2 cards. So I'll sacrifice this forest, increasing my power. Kill the Eldrazi Linebreaker. At this point, I guess I will pick up a Bayou. 5 damage on board, I'm dead to anything. Wasteland obviously bad, but it just matters whether or not the last card is a spell. Yup. Oh shit, it's not a spell. I've got other problems. I have to dodge my opponent ever drawing a spell again, which is not great. That draw, also not great. This is just a base 2/2 right now. I will play the larger creature. Lands enter tapped for Elvish Reclaimer, so I can't do any cool stuff there. Yep. Dead to whatever this is. Sure. Yep. So this is really important information. This shows me whether or not my opponent's build has more than 1 wasteland. I think they stacked their triggers wrong. Yeah, why would you show me that you have a Gaia's Cradle? That is not information that I needed to know about. Now I can plan around that. So, things that kill creatures are things that I should consider. I think Legolas's Quick Reflexes is like a little clunky. I'm not super excited about that. Bowmaster's chumps. Reanimate, honestly, is pretty rough on my life total in a match where the life totals matter a ton. My griefs are real bad if I cut 4 black cards and get rid of 4 reanimates. So, Collector Oof never stays in the deck. This is protection from the color of your choice. So that's not going to protect from Kozilek's Command. I'm just going to turn that into a Karakas as something that physically produces mana. I want these. I'm unsure about this. It's removable, but it feels very awkward and situational. I think I'm going to don't feel great about it. The last thing I could do is play some Endurances just as additional creatures. If I keep my Griefs and Reanimates for this game that I'm on the play, I don't think I want to do that. This has multiple Wastelands, and when my opponent does not have a Lotus Petal or a Mox Diamond, this is quite strong. I think I am going to start on Bayou rather than the basic, given the 3 total black pips in my hand. Opponent's on 7 this time. And we're just hoping that I can bury my opponent in 2 wastelands here. Their deck has a lot of soul lands. Getting dismembered immediately, looks like. That's a lot of life, though. So we are just starting the game over where my opponent has a lower life total. And we're going to kind of hope to keep repeating this process. I'll wasteland them during their upkeep. And hopefully we leave some stuff stranded in their hand. Their deck does have an exceptional number of soul lands. Do I have a Surveil land in this deck? No, I don't. I'll play an Urborg and pass. Prefer not to play the Yavimaya. The Yavimaya gave my opponent mana. The Yavimaya gives green as a relevant color. I probably got a basic. I don't think I do that. I think I am just going to turtle up a bit. Alright. Unfortunately, playing my Urborg means that my opponent gets to play Magic now. I have to decide if I want to trade Deed for this, if I want to try to Assassin's Trophy that, kind of how I want to approach this. With mana bottlenecked, I can probably just cast this. Deed makes it a little tough for my opponent to just go nuts. So most of that stuff is not castable. But damn, those cards are good. So Wastecape Battle Mage can just junk my Pernicious Deed. My opponent gains access to green. I think I am most scared of the Thought-Knots here, although Kozilek's Command is annoying. I think I don't want to lose this Assassin's Trophy, because this Assassin's Trophy is the way that I probably ultimately end up answering Maze of Ith to get through for 20 points of damage. Alright, so the 4 drops are now online. Means that sowing Mycospawn can immediately happen. Nope, it's just Kozilek's Command. Oh, nope, it is sowing Mycospawn. Or Gaia's Cradle, sure. I'm not sure if that's actually a good thing to have in the deck, but it looks really good in this spot. That just lets my opponent tap for 4 and sowing Mycospawn again. So they are going to Kozilek's Command first for a bunch of damage. Okay, so there's no 0 drops in play. This being in my graveyard or being in exile doesn't super matter here. I'm going to take a little bit more damage. I'm at 14. This feels pretty awful. So my opponent can keep a Wastecape Battle Mage back as a way to answer a Merit Lage at sorcery speed. They can keep Kozilek's Command to answer 1 at instant speed. They have Sowing Mycospawns to tutor up Wastelands at will. Does not seem like this matchup is going to be good for me on average. Like, I had other lines this game. Like, I can hope they don't have a basic Wastes and take out the Maze of Ith. I can take out the Glaring Fleshraker. But the dam on this stuff was going to break out, and it's happening before I really have a chance to do my thing. And also, like, the Urborg and Yavimaya lands also just make my opponent's lands better at casting their difficult-to-cast cards. Like an Assassin's Trophy this, play this, it's a 3-3. I think this game is already over. I think I go green-black to play this. I think I have to sorcery speed get rid of Glaring Fleshraker. Then we'll find out whether or not my opponent does have the basic Wastes. Or basic Forest, for that matter. No covered Wastes. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I think we're done here, and it just takes my opponent 2 to 3 more turns to finish me off. Maybe less. Alright, we've got a Kozilek's Command. Opponent presumably floating their mana in a way that lets them sowing Mycospawn afterwards. Maze of Ith shouldn't have been tapped. Yeah. So I'm just trading bodies here. I'm still taking 5 a turn. My opponent has given up the instant speed answer. I'm just going to play this. My opponent has given up the instant speed answer to Merit Lage, which is good, but I'm just going to get tempoed out by this card. Like, bounce this white, attack me for 5, have 7 or more power in play. Can I rip Pernicious Deed? Not effectively. Yeah, sowing Mycospawn stops that from being relevant. So the Mox Diamond is the blue for the Wastecape Battle Mage. Cavern of Souls would have accomplished the same thing, though. So take 5. Don't have a Surveil land. They wouldn't really have the life total for it anyway. And that draw means that I am dead. GG's. Feels like a rough matchup.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists. And they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out.
Okay. That hand doesn't do anything. Yikes, this hand also doesn't do anything. Like, I have grief and troll, so like I can grief and do nothing? I'll go to 5. Wow. I guess on 5 I keep something that has some play to it. Not having a surveil land here is pretty brutal. Alright. I think I've lost this game just based on raw resources. Sure. Please don't do the same thing as last game. Just kill me. Just kill me with tendrils. You got it. I can Assassin's Trophy that. Not right now, I can't, though. Sure. Yes. Oh, they get to do this song and dance again. Where's the payoff card? Where's the Karn or whatever? Yes. 1 card left. Okay. I get to Assassin's Trophy something. I have a main deck collector oof that I can do next turn. I am not sure which one of those things is more dangerous. So just talking through it, if I leave Paradox Engine in play and my opponent draws the 1 ring, like that's it, we're done, it's over. My opponent can still play 4 mana cards. I think the Paradox Engine is the more dangerous thing. But if all I am trying to do is make it 1 turn, then taking out Grim Monolith might be the answer. Just dodge 1 draw step exactly. If my opponent is effectively just untapping an Ancient Tomb, that's not bad. Ooh, my opponent does not have a basic. Alright. Need to dodge. It is a Karn. We'll see what my opponent can do with it. I imagine not much this turn. Yeah, this Karn is much scarier if my opponent still has Grim Monolith. There's Basalt Monolith. Now we Green Sun for 2. Get the Collector Oof. Now we are in much better shape. It's possible that there is a Karn Silver Bullet that can answer Collector Oof, but it would probably be at much more mana than what my opponent has access to right now. I was somewhat expecting to just see Karn Plus on Paradox Engine and just defend the Karn. Finding Ensnaring Bridge. That's perfectly fine. There's a defense grid. Oh, cool. Now I don't even need to attack the Karn, but it's probably more important for me to get Wight of the Reliquary online than to ping Karn. Probably. To finish off Karn, go green, crop rotation, sacrifice Bayou, get Wasteland, Wasteland Ancient Tomb. Okay, and my opponent is done with me. And then we would Wight of the Reliquary, then the next turn we Bowmaster ping my opponent, and then I can search up Wastelands for 2 turns in a row, or otherwise start going for a combo. We got a little lucky there. We made the correct decision for this exact game. Won't always be the case in the future. Just go ahead and make that tiny little land swap there. Probably just board out the Maze of Ith. Force of Vigor is great. Pernicious Deed is slow but reasonable. Chalice of the Void has some text but is kind of unexciting. Quick Reflexes is pretty weak. Grief, Reanimate, actively good. I could probably skimp on some lands. Cutting lands when you're a Mox Diamond deck that also wants just generic mana to fuel into things like Green Sun, though, is a little rough. The Grist could go. It's good with Wight. A reasonable thing versus Urza Saga tokens, if that's something that I need to worry about. I'm unsure how greedy I can get with cutting bodies. I don't think I cut Mox Diamonds because Green Sun for X equals 3 matters so much. That's why I don't want to touch lands either. But most of the stuff that's here now seems reasonable. I just junk one Reclaimer. Feels weird, but I can't really figure out what else to cut. So, is this hand reasonable? Turn 1 Troll Cycle, turn 2 Reanimate plus Elvish Reclaimer. But I'm not interacting with my opponent in any capacity. I can't Assassin's Trophy immediately. Don't have a Wasteland. Don't have Elector. Oof. It feels like this is a perfectly fine hand that plays Magic but ultimately loses. A Force of Vigor hand or a Wasteland hand is much stronger than this, as is a hand that naturally has Collector Oof or Green Sun. Fuck yeah. I'm going to need to hit a green land or a Mox Diamond, but I like this a lot better. This is a hand that I am keeping knowing the risks. Yes. Yes. Oh. Yes. So when I have priority, we're going. Right now, Force of Vigor, target those two, get rid of a crop rotation. And then that did not give my opponent the window to do something with Mystic Forge. We're going to play a land and pass. We have another draw to spike a green land to naturally Collector Oof on 2. Uh-oh. Sure. This is 3 mana for Basalt Monolith. Okay, give me that green draw. Give me that green draw. Come on. That's not bad. We'll take that. The difference between 3 and 4 or 3 and 5 is absolutely relevant in this matchup. We're just buying time here. Okay, this is why 5 mattered. But my opponent does not have a lot left. I do not play this land so that Mox Diamond can serve as a green source for Collector Oof. But that, okay, cool. So we are both awkwardly staring at each other now. I think this top deck war favors me. They have a non-playable card in hand, which means it is probably some sort of Karn-costed card or a land. I'm just gonna accept that sometimes this takes 0 cards, but this is sometimes incredibly important. Fuck. Wow. I have to. I'm taking that Dismember. It sucks. Okay. So now we are hoping to dodge a castable spell, because a castable spell turns on Mystic Forge by untapping Basalt Monolith. Okay, we dodged this turn. Fuck. Let the record show, I in no capacity regret this keep in any way. Alright, there we go. So things start getting bad here. There's the Mystic Forge. And now my opponent can do a lot of selection to cast spells, untap their stuff, continue to play things with Mystic Forge, depending on how much life they are willing to spend. This is going to get really tedious, so I'm just going to give you relevant updates. Alright, a few spells later, we have a Karn the Great Creator. This can just get a Walking Ballista and kill me immediately, as my opponent does have at least 40 mana. My opponent is continuing to go, so maybe they don't have Walking Ballista, which feels weird, but whatever. Alright, opponent's got the One Ring, so now they can, like, untap that a bunch of times. I don't know why the Karn hasn't killed me already, but they can continue to play with themselves for a while if they want. So, 5 minutes later, my opponent has finally decided to tutor the Walking Ballista that they could have killed me with 50 mana ago. I'll concede. No changes. So this hand starts with a Force of Vigor. Oh man, this is awkward. It's probably a keep. It's just incredibly awkward. I lead on Dryad Arbor and pass so that I can turn on Crop Rotation. Crop Rotation may be fixing my colors. It may be getting Dark Depths. I'm not really sure yet. Dismember is very awkward if my opponent happens to have that. Cool. Yep. And Dryad Arbor is summoning sick the first turn and can't tap for mana to Crop Rotation itself. This is one of the saddest plays I think I have ever made on this channel. But here we are. Reanimate my Dryad Arbor. Dryad Arbor, we salute you. You dealt 6 damage to my opponent. Yep, I have a Force of Vigor queued up to take that out. That is a Mystic Forge, so same as last time, as soon as I get priority, I will take out both of those. Mystic Forge, Grim Monolith, get rid of, I think, Elvish Reclaimer here. Yeah, so crop rotation, get Dark Depths, 1, 2, Thespian Stage, copy. Seems like we're good. Guess it's possible for my opponent to play Wasteland, so I guess I just do this now. Junk Dryad Arbor, get Dark Depths, mana, Thespian Stage, target Dark Depths, keep the one with no ice counters. My opponent would need, like, Karn plus the ability to produce Ensnaring Bridge. There's a Basalt Monolith. There's Karn. Karn minus. Get Coding. Sure. Okay, you turned my thing into an artifact. I respect the hustle. Back you for lethal. Alright, GG's. Is the land count high enough in my deck? I feel like I have so few hands that do not have enough mana. So let's mulligan. This is a keep. Roll could be one color of mana. Mox Diamond can be the second. I also could throw back Mox Diamond, but not having colored mana for both of my double colored pip spells is a little rough. I don't know, I could just get rid of the most expensive spell in my hand and hope to just Dark Depths combo my opponent. That's, I guess, reasonable. My opponent is on 6 and is playing a blue deck. Oh, fuck me. Gosh, that is really annoying. Okay, so the follow-up question then becomes, do I Wasteland this opponent? Vexing Bauble probably means that they are a combo deck list, so maybe something in like the Necro Dominance Doomsday ballpark that does not need to run counters. I think I Wasteland. But life's a little awkward here. Sure. Yeah, no, we have absolute defensive combo vibes going on here. My opponent should take my Troll. It is very easily the best card in my hand. Taking the Troll takes me off of both of my colors. Fuck yeah. Oh, that's so important. Okay. Yeah, so since my opponent did not take the Troll, I am going to get a Bayou with this and make my next 2 land drops for sure. Like, be actively working towards a combo kill that I should not be able to be doing. Now, the other thing is that I could just crop rotation Thespian Stage into a Wasteland and try to stay alive and give up the combo in the short term. My opponent's up to no good. Alternatively, with the Urborg draw, I just play Dark Depths or Urborg this turn, the other one next turn, and then present the 20/20. I guess that means that I don't need the Bayou. I can Bayou as a speed bump, Bayou Crop Rotation Wasteland as a speed bump, and then win with the other 3 lands. Alright. I am into it. Let's make that happen on my opponent's upkeep. Weird game. So, Crop Rotation. Get rid of Bayou. Sacrifice Vexing Bauble. Cycle Straight Wraith. Okay, so we're getting Doomsday vibes here. Okay, and then Force of Will, Pitching Brainstorm. Sure. I am good with that expenditure of resources. Like, I would prefer that my opponent not have this extra land, but doesn't matter anyway. Just Dark Ritual Doomsday. Sure. So it is Vexing Bauble plus Thoughtseizes plus Force of Wills. That is a lot of protection. And don't have the best sideboard stuff for Doomsday, right? That's part of the appeal. We can see a Street Wraith going into the pile. Okay, so opponent is at 6. I'm not dead immediately. I can play a Wight this turn. So I will Mox Diamond, discard Urborg, play Yavimaya, because that is worse for my opponent than Urborg. The Urborg may help them out, but I fully expect to die this turn. And it's possible that I kill my opponent if it gets back to my turn. But I should not get a turn here. Just fully should be dead. That's 2 life, Thassa's Oracle with 1 card remaining. That'll do. So, Endurances and Veils are reasonable. Carpet of Flowers I can consider. Surgical can technically shuffle a pile. It's weak. Chalice technically has some text, but it's weak. Maze of Ith does not matter. I'll turn that into a Caracas. This usually doesn't matter. I'll cut this. Assassin's Trophy is kind of mid. Collector Oof is kind of mid. This is kind of mid. Wrist is very slow. Do I even care about the Oof? Opponent can't cycle Baubles. Maybe has some Lotus Petal type stuff as well. I think I always want those 5. Not that the carpet itself is that impressive, but it's just literally another turn 1 play that does something. Let's say Oof, shutting off my Mox Diamonds is enough of a downside here that I'm not going to play that. I think I want all of these in the deck. I cut the Sajiri already. Don't think I want to junk any other lands from the deck. This whole like Grave Troll Reanimate package, it feels like it is just eating up a lot of the space in my deck. Like, can I reasonably cut these? It lowers my black count while also lowering my ability to get my colored mana, which is a problem. Surgical with Grief is fine. Maybe I don't carpet. Maybe I trim one of these. It technically has a plan, but I am, I think, going to hope that I can do better than that. My deck bad? I kind of have no faith in this hand. Land enters tapped. Land enters tapped, so it's not immediate wasteland. This is so fair. Did my opponent keep? Opponent kept. So what? On turn 3, I attack for 3, tutor a tapped wasteland. I play a Bowmasters. So lining up a Grief Reanimate or a Troll Reanimate is probably better than this. But this on average might just be kind of what I can be expected to do in this matchup. Not having access to a Surveil land is brutal. I think I just... Fuck me. Okay. Yeah. So I've got my choice of Orcish Bowmasters or Wasteland Underground Sea as my viable options. Opponent will be at 10. Say there's 2 Street Wraiths in the pile, and my opponent wants to draw 3 cards. That's still just not lethal. So I probably have to go the crop rotation or Wasteland route. Alright, opponent's at 10. Okay. So now I can plan. So I'm going to surgically extract this Doomsday in hopes of shuffling their pile, and maybe there's a chance. Sure. Do I Bowmaster now? Or do I just... I was supposed to get this information before I made this decision. If I were the opponent, I would have tried to build a pile that beats Wasteland. Accordingly, I am going to Bowmaster and hope that that works. Here we go. Fuck. Well, I guess that's a good thing I didn't crop rotation Wasteland. That would not have actually destroyed the land. Okay, so my opponent has 3 total mana remaining in their deck. Crop rotation can take away 1 of those. I actually need a screenshot here because this is going to get a little complicated. Okay. So all of the mana is in hand already. So it becomes a question of, does my opponent draw Unearth as their card this turn? If they draw Unearth, then Force of Will is not a live card. All right, so I know that they do not have Consider. So they drew either Days, Oracle, or Unearth. So a third of the time, no, 2/3 of the time this resolves. Because if they drew Thassa's Oracle, they can't pitch it. Grief! Okay. If Thassa's Oracle is in hand, Unearth is still in deck. How do I order these spells? So if my opponent, this is a 3/3 base creature. So if I Grief and Thassa's Oracle is in hand, I still have Unearth to deal with. There's always an untapped source here. Oh man, this Unearth is fucking me up. So if Daze is in hand, all right, I think I want to do it this way. Okay. So Daze was the draw. So Thassa's Oracle and Unearth are the 2 cards remaining in deck. I need to Wasteland so that if Oracle is drawn, cycling on Unearth, not a problem right now. I take Force of Will. I Wasteland. My opponent just dazes to bounce this, but that sets them back a turn anyway. Setting back that turn is what's relevant. Yes. Okay. Yep. So we wanted, I guess, Thassa's Oracle in hand, so I get to take Thassa's Oracle and then Bojukabog it, but that didn't happen. So I Wasteland this, pass turn. All right. So I need something else here. Like a Grief would do it, a Wasteland would do it, a Tutor for that would do it. Urborg does not do it, unfortunately. Like, I play my thing, but then my opponent drops Underground Sea, Oracle, and I die. Yup. Well, we had a fighting chance in that one. GG's. Okay. Mox Diamond, discard Yavimaya, cycle Troll, get Bayou, Grief, pitch Bowmasters, cast Reanimate? Okay. That'll do. I guess technically I can start with Grief, junk Bowmasters before I make those other decisions, but I imagine I'm going out the turn in the capacity that I have described. Force of Will, pitch Brainstorm. You've got it. Mox Diamond. Discard. Swamp Cycle. Does another Mox Diamond make sense against a potential Wasteland deck? Yeah, it puts extra lands in graveyard. Let's do that. Mox Diamond. Discard Swamp. Reanimate. I think target Grief since my opponent was so viscerally opposed to it. I have played 7 cards on turn 1. Ah. Well, I am taking my opponent's Reanimate, so they can't reanimate my Troll. Wait, hold the fuck up. Hold the fuck up. No. You kept a 7-card hand. You kept a 7-card hand with Wasteland as your only land? What the fuck? Like, respectfully, what the fuck? What are you doing? The London Mulligan. So fucking good. Why would you keep that? Sure. Alright. You're at 16. I will play out an Elvish Reclaimer. So this represents access to Bojukabog if I draw any land. Meaning that that Archon isn't just going to, like, sneakily get into play. Alright, you're playing Magic. Crop Rotation is currently dead since I don't control any lands. I'll attack for 4. Opponent's at 12. Can see a Surveil land end of turn here. Junking a Brazen Borrower. Notably, my opponent skipped playing a Wasteland. So colorless mana for things like Petty Theft is harder because they decided to skip a land drop intentionally. Got a Swamp. This needs to be something like a Psychic Frog for my opponent to stay in this game. Sure. So I can happily reanimate my own Troll here. Let's just do a quick check to make sure I'm not dead. My opponent could have 5 cards in hand and attack me for 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. That's not dead. Seems fine. I will go ahead and attack with my Grief here. Menace means I get through Psychic Frog. Opponent's at 7. I reanimate Troll. And it's in play. Fantastic. I guess I should turn off yielding through this turn in case my opponent, like Sorcery Speed, Brazen Borrower's Troll for some reason. Brainstorm's fine. My opponent needs Animate Dead. They need to discard Archon of Cruelty to Animate Dead. That puts them to 10 life, which means that they can survive Troll plus Grief. That's their out. There's the land. Yep. Did you find Animate Dead? Yep. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. It is infuriating that I may lose this game after my opponent kept a hand that was that bad. Wasteland is a touch too late. I dismiss this. There are some things that I want to be able to play. I'm not going to do that. Oh, I'm just going to fucking die. I'm just going to die to Archon of Cruelty. Cool. That is infuriating. I'm so tired of playing against this blue-black shell. Alright, Endurance in, probably Surgicals in, Veils are okay. Carpet's okay. I don't think I'm going to mess around with any of the other stuff. Oof always comes out. My cards seem reasonable. I don't think the game is about this. I don't think the game is about this. Getting rid of this makes these much worse, though. I, in theory, want to like be threatening the Bojuka Bog the whole game. It is so hard to sideboard with this deck because as soon as I take something out of the deck, I feel like the core of the deck falls apart. Like, if I cut these, my already bad mana becomes worse. If I cut these or these, the other becomes worse. I guess I'm cutting, like, green suns. They're just slow. That makes my grist worse. It makes my threat density low. I think I need, like, that stuff. I guess I could, like, not do this. Keep that. I think I am just not a fan of this deck's construction. I guess we're keeping this. And I think we still do this. Okay. So of these, we'll take Psychic Frog. And then I'll just fetch now. Your land's over there, not Wasteland. Play this game on basics very easily, unless I draw Endurance, which is green. Okay, then I guess I'll buy. I will reanimate Grief. We're not reanimating Psychic Frog here because my opponent also has Brazen Borrower. I think I am taking that Brazen Borrower. Don't want this Grief bounced out of play if possible. So then my opponent fetches Ponders on turn 1. I Wasteland them. That keeps him off of Douthie Voidwalker for a few turns. There's the fetch. There could be Basic Island. There's not this time. So we Wasteland first, shut off Daze, and then we can go ahead and play our Elvish Reclaimer and crash in. It's not huge yet. It will be soon, hopefully, as long as we keep it out of, if we keep Douthie Voidwalker out of play. That is Force of Will pitching Daze. That's why we did the cards in the order that I said. Crash in with Grief. 15. There's a new Delta. Why don't I have a Surveil land? Send in for 3. Go to 12. I want to play the fetch land immediately so that if my opponent plays Douthie Voidwalker this turn, I have 3 fetches. Or I have 3 lands in yard so that future Elvish Reclaimers are 3/4s. Sure. So there's Delta 3, presumably into Douthie Voidwalker. Touch. And we're going to start running into these issues where my average top deck is not great. Do I want to trophy that? This card is not named Psychic Frog, but this card is going to beat me to death. Every life point probably matters. I think I will just take it out now before my opponent can draw another card and potentially protect it. There is a Basic Island. Surveil land gives my opponent some selection. Did not get max punished by Psychic Frog. I think I am okay with Wasteland keeping my opponent off of hard casting a Grief. I still have a 4th land to play something like Endurance around Daze. Sure. So now this is just going to run away with the game unless I top deck an answer to it right now. This is the wrong time for this. The Surgical now doesn't do anything because Psychic Frog. So that's cool. I'm having fun. Can you tell? So when Grief didn't get banned, while the best deck in the format also got a massive upgrade that allows it to make all of its bad matchups into good matchups, while making hate that exists against the deck worse, and making it so that it just always has the possibility of winning combat. It is incredibly frustrating. So I need to assemble probably a 2020 to get the kill here. The issue being that Psychic Frog can get flying and block and delay the inevitable, so I might just get tempoed out. And I do not have the ability to Surgical Extraction and take out the Brazen Borrower that is the out to the avenue that I'm doing, because Psychic Frog is some bullshit. Ugh. Yup. Sure. Huh? Alright. I will Surgical your Psychic Frog. My Surgical has some text here. Sure. Nothing really interesting, although my opponent has Force of Negations, which seem kind of weak to me, but it's not gonna matter. Yeah, you know, you forgot Frog in response, you kept a terrible hand. But again, it doesn't matter because your deck's so good. Yep. So my opponent should probably dump 2 cards into Psychic Frog this turn and put me to 3. That way Douthie Voidwalker always kills me next turn. Even if I produce something that stops Psychic Frog. But they didn't. And it's not gonna matter. So I've got a couple of ways that I can produce the end of my turn. I can tutor Maze of Ith and then have a way to stop one of the 2 creatures. Or I can try to get lucky? What about just producing a 2020? Get Thespian stage now. Get Dark Depths. Produce 2020. 2020 blocks Psychic Frog. Take 3. Go to 2. Hope my opponent misplays with Psychic Frog and gives me a spot where I can Bojuka Bog, empty graveyard for Psychic Frog, so it can't get flying. That sounds good. I mean, it doesn't sound good, but it sounds like what I'm doing. Oh no, I double counted my mana. This isn't gonna work. Yeah, I double counted my mana. Alright, if I get Maze of Ith, does Bowmasters as a draw save me? I get the Maze of Ith, I stop Douthie, I bog so Psychic Frog can't get flying. I'm still just in a terrible position and probably end up losing, but I get another turn. GG's. Alright. Hands a keep. I have lands and spells. I have some thoughts about this deck, more generally speaking. Oh great, we're gonna do this shit again, huh? Alright. Bam. Bam. I think that one. And I think I'm just gonna pass the turn and Bowmasters immediately in response to an end of turn fetch. Just don't want it to be dazable. Cool. Surveil land. Oh, okay, cool. It's a different matchup. We're gonna lose. I am just not well equipped to beat Storm decks. I need to Green Sun for Collector Oof, I think, to have a reasonable chance, but I might just die here. Reign of Filth. Sure. I haven't seen that one in a hot minute. So if you're not familiar with that one, it lets you sack your lands to produce black mana. Cabal Ritual. Not with Threshold. Burning Wish. Is this just goblins? It is just goblins. I don't have Tabernacle in this deck, though. So that kind of sucks for me. I maybe just beat this. Yeah. So I can play an Elvish Reclaimer. Green Sun for 1. Get another Elvish Reclaimer. And just mitigate the damage on the ground and work my way towards a Dark Depths kill. I don't think this is enough for my opponent. We'll see if they even attack. They do. I will block. Take out 4 of these. Take 6 damage. But then that's, like, this is just not enough damage to do the thing anymore. I will just do the crop rotation Dark Depths thing when I have more mana. Like, we're not really worried about an unfair round 2 here. Like, we are now mathematically stable versus these goblins. I can hold up Bowmaster and get Dark Depths, I suppose. I don't think I'm going to attempt to do fair beatdown stuff here. So let's turn Bayou. Oh, okay. Without the 4th land, it's a little awkward. I was probably going to get like a Yavimaya or something to make it so that a Dark Depths would tap for mana. I have a bunch of kind of mid options that I'll be playing. Chalice, Veil, I guess Deed clears Goblin tokens if that happens again. Surgical is mid, Endurance is mid. The Graveyard Hate is not necessarily the most exciting stuff here. I probably won't force a Vigor. I don't need Maze of Ith. I might cut this as well. Don't need Legolas's Quick Reflexes. Ramunap, Grist are mid. Assassin's Trophy, not super exciting versus most of the things that my opponent can have. Veils and Chalices always come in. I think I will do this as an insurance policy versus Goblins. It pitches to Grief, and then there's these cards. The Surgicals are more interesting with Grief than they otherwise might be. I probably just trim some Wights. To be honest, they haven't done anything in the entire league, so, you know, that's a thing. And then, like, there is Endurance for some potential, like, Past in Flames nonsense. You know, the Wights are so bad that I'm just going to do this. The Endurances have some low degree of interaction threshold with what my opponent is doing. Like, the big difference between Endurance and Wight is that Wight pitches to Grief. This is an incredibly awkward hand. I have my turn 3, 2020. I have no ability to do this Grief. I can't crop rotation immediately for Dryad Arbor. Or, sorry, because Dryad Armor will have Summoning Sickness. And my Bojuka Bog is not usable at instant speed. I think the combination of these things mean that this hand is just, like, not going to be fast enough. So this is take one thing from my opponent's hand and wasteland them, and then pray that the top of my deck is good. I don't have a Surveil land in my deck to turn this into selection, which is frustrating. But I guess I'm keeping. I guess this is why there's a game 3, right? I guess we can top deck Reanimate, and it's still reasonable. Alright. Oh, I'm just getting turn 1. Sure. Alright. Infernal Tutor, 4 mana. Beseech. Oh, Adnos, sure. This probably either literally or effectively wins the game. So we've got 2 mana off Lotus Petals into 5 mana for Cabal Ritual. I imagine that LED does it. No, they need a tiny bit more, right? Or no, what if we Infernal Tutored? Infernal Tutor with 3 mana? That does it. Okay, no, they can keep going. Right, but the Storm Count's just plenty, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So let's fast forward to Tendrils on the stack, because we're dead. Tendrils on the stack. There we go. So let's hope to do something in game 3 here. We could do something like Desperation, Force of Vigor to try to mess up LED. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think that's the level of desperation that we are at here. Actually, on the play, I'm going to increase my black count slightly for Grief, because Grief Reanimate matters so much more when I'm on the play. Well, mattered. My hand sucks. I do not have any black mana to cast any of the spells in my hand, so the only thing that I can do is Grief plus Wasteland. I don't think I accept that on a 7. This has no colored mana, so I mulligan, go to 5. Mox Diamond, discard Dryad Arbor, play Bayou, cycle Troll, reanimate Troll. Okay. Put Urborg and a reanimate back in the deck. It will be very easy to kill me with a natural Tendrils this game. Let's Mox Diamond, discard Dryad Arbor, play Bayou. Technically, I should play that after I do it, so my opponent does not know that the last card in my hand is a land. But we are just fully flooping our large creature on the table and hoping that it works. Wow, there's a snow-covered island in the mana base over there. Yeah, okay. We accept that as a draw. It's obviously awkward after mulliganing to 5 and playing Mox Diamond, but the Mox Diamond allowed me to play a turn 1 6/5 creature, so thank you for your service, Mox Diamond. And it's in play. So the ritual mana is what is relevant now. And again, I am at 14. So a couple of rituals into a Beseech is potentially just going to be enough to get the win. Colors could be a little rough for my opponent. Ad Naus is probably valid this turn and not valid after this turn. That is a pretty weak Green Sun. Opponent's at 6 though, so hopefully a weak Green Sun just as another physical card to play is good enough. That gets Elvish Reclaimer. This is not going to be large next turn. More importantly, it's going to represent a Bojuka Bog, though. We'll see if my turn 4 Goldfish is fast enough with one piece of Disruption. My opponent is more likely to have issues with being bottlenecked on colors of mana than they are something like Storm Count here. The third land means that my opponent does have access to black and red. Okay. I'm happy if that is just being cycled, is what I was about to say, but it can't be cycled because of Collector Oof. Wonder if my opponent is making that same realization. Playing that Vexing Bauble means that they can't Gaia's Will anymore. Alright. Chain of Vapor is fine. I will not be bouncing your Vexing Bauble. So I am fine with Swamp Cycling. Up a Bayou. Play a Bayou. I have lethal next turn. The difference between 3 life and 2 life is minimal. It matters in double fetch land scenarios. I think keeping up Bojuka Bog matters more, so I'm just going to attack for 2 here. And I can clear out my opponent's graveyard in response to a Cabal Ritual or anything of that general nature. It's possible my opponent needed to get this out of hand for Infernal Tutor reasons, if they can't go Hellbent using LED. Okay, so we will see if this mana ends up being relevant, because I did not attack with this and opted to hold up Bojuka Bog. They are at least fetching. Hexproof from blue and black does not matter here. Though this has changed. Now the artifacts will go into play rather than into graveyard. Alright, and we do put a win on the board. Alright, Austin. Your deck doesn't work. Sorry, bud, but it just doesn't. So over the course of this entire league, I did not activate a Wight of the Reliquary and in a single time. I constantly had mana issues. The mana requirements of this deck are pretty steep. I don't think 23 lands was supporting my Mox Diamonds well. I don't think these trolls helped. Like, these trolls not being additional lands meant that my Mox Diamonds were worse. Like, 24 lands or 23 lands, just for the sake of comparison, that was like 60 card D&T levels of land, right? And 60 card D&T, mathematically speaking, had trouble casting a white card on curve. And we were trying to cast these like black-green cards on turn 2. We had lands that just simply did not allow us to reanimate on turn 1. So like, let's put them in a pile. So 14 of my lands don't allow me to reanimate on turn 1. Only 9 of them do. Now, the Mox Diamond adds to that count, meaning that I have 13 lands that allow me to do one of the things that my deck is built around doing. But like, you can build the like this pile right here in different ways to show like what this does not cast. But generally speaking, my deck did not operate very well today, especially when put under any sort of pressure from opposing cards. And we just kind of folded to stuff. I don't feel like we have enough interaction for combo. I don't feel like we have reasonable game versus an opposing Grief Reanimate Psychic Frog deck. I think the games that we won, we stole on the back of cards like Collector Oof. And, you know, when you put Grief Reanimate in your deck, it will steal a couple of wins for you. But, you know, ultimately, if you ask me why do I play this deck, I cannot answer that question. We never activated this. I don't even think I ever played a Green Sun for 3 in this entire league. So like these cards were largely dead weight. My mana efficiency was poor, and I just like wasn't getting into this mid game of like, okay, I just sit there safely with Elvish Reclaimer and grind my way to a win. That happened so infrequently because my opponent just had more powerful things. And if we can't beat the blue-black player who keeps Wasteland as their only playable land, you know, that is probably telling for the deck construction. I think there's a lot of different series of cards here that just don't do things in conjunction. And many of our cards are just a little bit awkward. Like Legolas's Quick Reflexes, Collector Oof, those are not generically good cards. Like Collector Oof, in fact, works against something that is potentially a core part of the deck. And there are some literal non-producing mana lands in this deck, like lands that don't produce mana, like Dark Depths and Maze of Ith, that don't let you troll cycle. So like you can have these 1-landers that should be 2-landers, but they don't actually become 2-landers. So I don't think what's here is worth strongly pursuing, and Wight of the Reliquary continues to underperform on the channel. As far as the sideboard goes, the cards that were here were reasonable, but I don't know that I just have enough game, generally speaking, for my sideboard cards to have enough of an impact. Like, anytime that I don't have Grief in my opener, I just feel like I am an absolute dog to combo. Maybe, you know, the sideboard needs some Thought Seizes instead of these Legolas's Quick Reflexes. So yeah, Austin, I hope that gives you something to work with here, but I don't think this brew was super viable, and that's okay. Like, we are existing in a metagame where one or more cards very clearly need to be banned so that we get a feel for where the rest of the stuff in the format actually stands. So brews not being successful is fine, but I think even if we lost some of the higher power stuff in this deck, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze here. Alright folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. If you need some cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit on your order. I'm going to eat some lunch, then I'm going to record another Legacy video and try not to get mad as I lose to blue-black decks again. See ya!